Live. Howdy, 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 and welcome to the Snort Cast. My name is Diana Nguyen, and thank you for joining me on the show. This is our 5th episode, and we are interviewing Lizzy Hoo, who is a comedian from Sydney. But before I begin, I want to know from you, where are you watching? We would love to know where our audience is watching from. We know you're from all around the world, and I'm still testing out the time zone. So I would love to know who's snorting along with us. So welcome to the SnortCast, and I am Diana Nguyen. I am your host, and I created the SnortCast because I wanted to celebrate comedy and laughter during this time of our lives. We're all experiencing this pandemic together, and it's an interesting time for human beings. Please tell us where you're watching from any continent around the world. You are zooming in or watching in from Australia, Melbourne, and our guest is from Sydney, so we're from 2 different states. And I do want to say thank you to my Patreon community for supporting this episode. I'm starting out a Patreon page to support the arts, and I just want to say thank you, because that was all by accident. So thank you so much for your support. And just tell us where you're watching from. We've got people watching from Florida, New Zealand, Florida, Montreal. Thank you so much for joining. And I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the Kulin Nations. We are on all different parts of the land today as we are going live streaming, and I would like to pay my respects to the elders, past, present, and to acknowledge that they have been on this land for millions of years, and it's our job to continue to tell stories, continue their story time, and to be proud Australians on this land. So that is my acknowledgement to country. And if you are following us, follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. We are going live for the first time on YouTube, so I'm just playing and testing it out. And if you want to check out more information about why the Snortcast, go to diananguyen.com.au/the Snortcast. Now, I would like to introduce to you our guest for today. Her name is Lizzy Hoo. Now, she is of many things. She is a writer, a noodle enthusiast, of course, a designer, actor, rugby lover, and a rescue groundhound owner of Owen. She's also a stand-up comedian and has blown up in the last 2 to 3 years doing stand-up. Now, she originally did stand-up as a self-confidence thing, but when you meet her and watch her stand-up very soon, you just realize why she's blown up so quickly. And she was the New South Wales State Finalist in the National Raw Comedy Competition, and she's been performing at the Just for Laughs Festival at Sydney Opera House, and has worked on SBS, Channel 10, and Foxtel's Comedy Channel. I am so excited to introduce our guest, and before I introduce her and get her on live, we're just going to watch a short reel of her work, and here we go.
Hello. I'm Lizzy Hoo. That's a name, not a question. But you can probably tell by these facial features that I'm part Irish. Yes, bit of an optical illusion, I know. My mum is the white one. Oh, plot twist. Whoa. And she saw me do comedy recently and was a little disappointed that I didn't bring up my Irish heritage. So I said, listen, white lady, nobody's going to buy Guinness from a bubble tea stand. I don't want people complaining about misleading packaging. You know, it's confusing for me to be part Irish. I get it. I was at my uncle's funeral in Dublin. It's okay, he was old. It's fine. And everyone at the wake thought I was that exchange student they had 10 years ago from Taiwan. wondering which path of medicine I'd chosen. Now, can you imagine, though, if I'd fulfilled that immigrant family dream of becoming a doctor? Then I would have been the first female Doctor Who. Few Whovians in the house, fans of me. Yes.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our guest. We have Lizzy in the room.
I hate watching myself, Diana.
I think a lot of people do hate watching themselves. Thank you so much. And what a kicker set that you had for Just for Laughs for Sydney.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. All I remember, though, about the night was how nervous I was. Like, I was just so nervous because, you know, I still think I'm pretty fresh, but, you know, being backstage, there's all these, like, big names and people you really look up to. And I was just like, oh, my God, what am I doing here? Why am I here? I just had to block it all out. But the set went really well. And I just, seems like such a distant memory, but it was really fun.
Yeah, oh no. Yeah, I watched it a couple of nights ago and I just went, well, she's just solid. She's in it. Yeah. You're in it.
There was one part and I did like nearly blank, you know, when you're sort of like it gets a bit too overwhelming and you're, and then I just started speaking and the words came out and I was like, oh, thank God.
Oh, dear. While we're here, let's meet you. Who are you? Who is Lizzy?
Who am I? Well, that was the name of my first comedy show, Who Am I? Well, I am a comedian, but I also work. I still work 4 days a week. I've been many things in the past. I've been a designer. I've written for magazines. Now I do comedy. So I'm a Scorpio. I'm also a pig. Year of the pig. Are you a pig?
No, I'm a Knox.
Oh, what does that mean?
So I'm a hard worker because, you know, the officers are plowing the field and I'm stubborn.
I love it. Yeah, I think pigs are hard workers too.
I feel like pigs are luxurious because mud.
They like nice things. They like they do. But when I was a kid, actually, I used to collect like little pigs. I don't know. I think the collection's still at my parents' house. But everyone, like when I had family visiting, they would bring little porcelain pigs or whatever, pig magnets and everything. Like even my dad not so long ago got me a pig like gold chain, you know, like Chinese style, really like gold. And it's like, oh, Dad, I'm not like 10 anymore. But he still thinks I'm into pigs.
Yeah. And I also read that your dad is like a ukulele.
Oh yeah, he's big. He's big on the ukulele scene, Diana.
Yeah.
It was something, you know, he's only taken it up in the last, I reckon, 8-10 years. So it's since he's retired, and it just gives him like this whole new lease on life. He just loves it. He is obsessed. He's probably got about 10 or 15 ukuleles stashed in his cupboard. Yeah, he like, you know, some people gamble, whatever. My dad plays ukulele.
Well, I've got 3 ukuleles. So
you do? Oh, he would love that. Anyone who shows an interest in ukulele, he will give them a ukulele.
Maybe I should have him on the show. I should have him on the show with a little riff.
He'd love it. He'd love it. Yeah, he's been recording himself. Like he's got all these. I just spent the week with my parents on holiday, and he's got all this equipment. Like he was showing me all his equipment in like Tupperware boxes. He's got his Rode microphone. He's got all these little bits that plug into, his tablet and everything. He's 81 years old.
He's lived a good life, living a good life.
Yeah.
Talking about life, if you had to write a book about your life, what would the title be called?
Oh, it's tough. Is it like some sort of like a memoir sort of thing? I'd have to play on my name. I'd have to do some sort of who pun there. It'd probably be like a who am I or a who dis or like something like that.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd have to play. It's just too good a name not to throw in there. Yeah.
Definitely. Like beside Michelle Obama's book Becoming, Lizzy Hoo, who dis. I love it.
Yeah.
And we're here to talk about comedy. What's your first memory of comedy? Like, it's not when you got on stage, not the first time you got on stage, but when did you realize that you had the power of comedy?
Look, when I was a kid, this is so weird. My mum, to get us quiet around the dinner table, she would make us say knock knock jokes. Like that was her thing, and everyone had to say a knock knock joke. And my joke was just terrible, but everybody laughed at it. I think I was like 4 years old, and I remember thinking like, wow, that was pretty cool. And then from that moment on, people would ask me what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I was like, oh, I want to be a comedian. And I was obsessed with, at that time, like, 80s, 90s, there were a lot of Aussie sketch shows on TV, and I was obsessed with the Comedy Company. Do you remember that? Like Kylie Mole. It was like late 80s, early 90s. And I remember going to the Ekka, which is our show. I don't know, do you have a royal show, like a Melbourne show? Here they have it. Yeah. So the Ekka in Brisbane is our like show. And I remember going to the Ekka and getting a Comedy Company show bag. And it had like a red plastic visor with like Comedy Company on it. And I was just obsessed. Yeah. So I think that is definitely my earliest memory.
Amazing. Love it. I lived for that royal show every year.
Yeah.
For the damn show bags, and you realize there was the cost of a show bag wasn't worth what was in there.
No. You used to save up all your pennies, like all your pocket money, and go to this stupid show and buy all this like samples from wherever. I ended up working like when I was at uni on the show bag stands for extra cash. And God, it was just the funniest thing. Like I worked on the magazine show bag stand, and people just buying like, it was like a women's health show bag. But yeah, haven't been to a show for a very long time.
And we're saying hi to our friends who are watching from LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. We've got Florida, we've got New Zealand, we've got Florida, Montreal, we've got Melbourne lockdown. We've got Chicago. Who else?
Wow.
We've got a whole, it looks like a continent. I've got some Brisbane people. Hi, Brisbane, watching in. Perfect time to talk about the ukulele. Thank you so much for joining myself and Lizzy to talk about comedy. Now, Lizzy, can I ask you, who inspires your comedy? Who gets you on stage?
Oh, like who do I look up to? Other comedians? Yeah, well, I'm a big fan of Ali Wong, obviously. You probably are too. Yeah. How could you not be? I think she was the first comic I saw, and I thought, hey, wait, that's me. Like she was just talking, just so many things. I was like, I remember my friend messaging me, my best mate, Sarah, and she said, hey, have you watched Ali Wong on Netflix? Like, it's you, you know. And I was like, holy shit. And then I watched it, and I've watched it like 30 times, I think, that first special. She's amazing. Michelle Wolf, I love her.
I love her too.
Yeah, I just love her writing style. It's just so boom, 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 boom. Like, yeah, I love it. Maria Bamford, she's great. Yeah, just amazing. I think they're probably my top 3.
Great.
Yeah.
My top 3 is Ali Wong, just because she did a Netflix special, like, you know, out of the blue, out of nowhere, kind of. It was you, like, who is she? But
and just
but when I read her book, Dear Girls, did I really understand? Okay, you've been doing this for years.
Years.
They didn't just pluck you out and give you an opportunity to, you know, stuff up on stage. You'd done this for years. Like, I remember in the book she wrote about, she was on a late night show, like it stank so bad, but then she did the same set for her Netflix and it popped.
Yeah.
And it took all those years to get to where she needed to. Have you had that feeling before where it just stank?
And last night. Also, it was real stinky. But that's what comedy's like, isn't it? You could have one amazing night, and then the next night you do the exact same thing.
Wow.
It's just real stinky.
Word. That's good. SnortCast stinky. I've just made that up with you. Thank you for explaining. And if you're watching from home, let us know who is your favorite comedian, why, because there are such a variety of comedians, and not just even comedians, but funny people, like comedy actors, and, you know, people who don't necessarily do stand up are funny people. We'd love to find out from you why you love that kind of style. Now, can I ask you, Lizzy, how have you used comedy in your storytelling?
Comedy allows you to bring up things that are hard to bring up. You know what I mean? If like, especially things like race and, you know, heritage and that sort of thing. Often, if you have a little humor with it, it makes it so much easier to approach. So that's definitely a way that I've used comedy, and it's easy to bring up hard topics. Yeah.
And, you know, you've segued right into where I wanted to talk to, which is about hard topics, especially, like, you know, there's this assumption that with comedy you're always light and bright and funny, but I feel with some comedians we do talk about dark things, or, you know, there are comedians like Michelle, who is she writes political jokes, and they commentate what's going on in the world. How have you used comedy to seek lightness or joy?
Yeah, I think I've used comedy to get things off my chest. You know, like, especially when I first started, all the stuff I was writing, and I wasn't thinking about it, but all the stuff I was writing was about my family and my heritage, and like my mum's white and my dad, and just like all these sort of things that I'd, you know, dealt with my whole life. And I was trying to say, like, oh, actually, this is the story, like, this is the truth. You know, people look at me, I think, and think, oh, it's like this sweet sort of Asian girl, but like in reality, like, I grew up in Brisbane, you know, like in a very white school, and there's just a lot more to it, and you just try and explain yourself a bit, I think, in the first few years.
And in that set that we just watched of you performing, you talked about race, because, you know, at the barbecue with all the family members, and, you know, because your mum's Irish, is that correct?
Yeah, well, she's Irish background. It is a bit of a stretch. Comedy. So it is a bit of stretch. I mean, I grew up I went to Catholic schools, and my mum goes to church every Sunday. You know, she's like a pretty staunch Irish Catholic woman. But she is from like Toowoomba in Queensland, which is a country town. But her family's Irish, like down the line, 150 years ago they came here. But same with my Chinese side, like Dad's family is ethnically Chinese, but they moved to Malaysia like 150 years ago, sort of thing. So it's same, really. But I get away with saying I'm Chinese, right?
Yes.
Yeah, of course.
Diversity card fits you.
Yeah, I love it. I'm playing it.
I love it. Well, perfect, because let's talk about diversity in comedy, like being a female, being or halfy Asian, and using that card. How has your work been in comedy since you launched off in 2017 on the circuit? Like, how has that been for you?
I think I entered just at the right time. Like, you've been doing comedy for a lot longer than me.
Yeah.
Like 10 years.
Well, Fee and Me was 2011, but then I got up in 2016 because I was like, they're only hiring comedians for TV shows.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, I've got to now put a new job on my CV. So that's why I went to stand up, really, was to just go, hey, I'm here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But yeah, for you, like, okay, how's
that? Yeah, I think I entered at the right time where, like people like Ali Wong were getting big and people were seeing like women of color in a sort of mainstream comedy setting. And definitely, even in the 3-4 years I've been doing comedy, I've noticed in the scene in Sydney, it's changed dramatically. Like, so many more women doing it, so many more women of color. And it's just sort of, it's quite normal now. But I reckon I've definitely got gigs because I am Asian and a woman. But I'll take it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because it's, well, like I can only count, like, there's probably 10 of us women who are, coloured Asian women. Coloured, I love that. We are women of the token pot, where we do get to be put into one lineup, and we're like the shining light of tokenistic ticking boxes. But I do. Every time I do see a lineup, I'm like, you could have done one more. You could have done one more Asian. You could have two. And that's why I started the Snort Cast, was to go, hey, you can have 3 Asians in the lineup. And you are going to do it with me for the comedy festival.
I know. I'm so bummed. Next year.
How are you from the comedy festival? Because you had a full run. This was your first full run.
Yeah, I was going to do a full run because last year I did 10 shows, and I loved it. And I noticed, and I don't know if you noticed this too, but by the sort of 7th, 8th show, you really get into a nice rhythm, and you see this sort of momentum start to form. And I could feel that, and then it stopped. And I was like, damn it.
And it's really good that you knew that, because, for a couple of years I only did 2-week shows, but I just always knew that there was more. And there's an overflow when people kind of pick up. You do go on the wave of people going, have you heard of this comedian? Go check her out. And so by the time you've left the state to go back to Sydney, you're on a high. People are just finding out about you. I
did notice that, because by the end, the shows I was doing didn't have my friends in it. Like, I didn't know anyone in the crowd. And I was like, oh, I've got all these people. And I kind of like, I don't know about you, but I want to ask everyone, like, hey, how did you find out? Like, why are you here? Who's telling you? Like,
it used to be that they in the show have an iPad and just tick people off the list. Like, how did you come to my show? The tap box.
Yeah, I need to, like, after the show, just do like a full questionnaire of people, market research of everyone.
I love it. So I've asked the question to our audience: who's your favorite comedian? Why? and we have not saying Dave Chappelle because his comedy is intelligent. I
so good.
I love his stuff, and I loved his last show called 846, I think it's called.
Oh, how powerful. That was
Oh, and that's why I love comedy. I love that he can he goes there, but he goes there so confidently, and that's
so clever.
Yeah, so clever. We've also got an oldie, Lucille. Love her marching on grapes. I just remember that image. And we've got Knock to say, really excited to check you two ladies out. Never seen you before, just found out about Diana on LinkedIn. So yes, if you're enjoying the show, you are joining us on LinkedIn. Which is the weirdest thing. But I want to ask you this, which I've kind of stalked you on Instagram because every time I've gone to this page, your circle profile's been there before me, and that's why I know you're a fan. Why Dr. Pimple Popper?
Oh my God, I think there's two people in the world, people who like Dr. Pimple Popper and people who can't handle her. And I am definitely a lover. Oh my God, I've been busted. But how good is it? I think most mornings, if I'm flicking through Instagram, she'll have a new pop. And now I'm one of those people, you know how she says, like, oh, do you know the difference between a paloma and a city? And I'm like, I do. But it's some of them I can't watch. But some of them, like the Skittle Pops.
Oh, yeah.
Beautiful.
Okay, when I saw every time I went, you were there before me, and I checked the pops before I did. I was like, oh my God, like she loves the release feeling, because it is like watching something like
out. Yeah, I love it. I think like even growing up, I remember this is really gross. I remember my brother had a boil on his leg, and he yelled out to me. He was like, "Hey, Moose," which is my family nickname. Moose, Moose, Moose. And he was just in the bath, and it was just oozing down his leg. It had popped by itself, and it was like the grossest, most satisfying thing I've ever seen.
Oh, satisfying, gross and satisfying. Balance it all up.
Did we lose half the viewers then?
Yeah. Look, but like, and I totally hear you. When you've watched her so much, you start to think that you could actually do the surgery.
Oh, like, totally.
I've gone to friends and said, I could cut that up. I know what to do. But you know what? You've got to get the sack out.
Yeah, that's the one thing you don't do when you squeeze your own pimples is like think about, oh, there's a sack you need to get.
I'm so glad we found a commonality, and I was waiting to tell you that I love Pimple Popper on the show.
I love that this is the question you were dying to ask.
Given has said Dr. Pimple Popper.
Yes.
With her, I myself not so much. It's not everyone's
one or the other. Yeah.
And because most of our audience is from LinkedIn, and a lot of them are speakers or wanting to speak, and comedy is one of the things that people want to be good at or use comedy in their presentation because they know it opens people up. Let's laugh and has a commonality of humans together in a room. What would be your tip to someone who wants to use comedy to share their story?
I think, doing things like an improv class or something like that would be really helpful, especially in a work setting, which is why I started to do comedy anyway, because I wanted to get better in my day job, presenting and doing creative briefs and that sort of thing, like in a meeting setting. Definitely, and then I took a couple of improv classes, and they really helped me just become more comfortable in myself. And I think if you are comfortable in yourself, the humor happens. like people find that engaging, and they find that you're relaxed and they get on board naturally. Yeah, and I think that's an easy way, especially in a work setting, to be more engaging. Yeah.
And when I was reading your bio, you said that you did stand up for self-confidence. How did you line those two things up to go?
Well, well, for public speaking, a lot of people have a fear of public speaking, right? And I didn't really have a fear of public speaking, but I was finding at the time that I was getting really nervous at work. Like, I had a new job and I was just getting a bit caught up in my head. And I thought to myself, if I can do stand-up comedy, I can talk to anyone. That was my thinking. So that's why I did a little course at Sydney Community College, and then at the end they put on a little stand-up show for everyone, and you invite friends and family. And I invited all of my workmates to come. And I think from that point, it sort of like released a pressure valve or something. And at work, especially, I became more of myself and more confident in my abilities and how to speak and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Wow. That's I find it so interesting when it's a massive leap.
Yeah.
And you're now a comedian. Like, you did it.
I find it a bit weird because every day I'm like, do I? Yeah, I do. Because I'm still working as well. So I've got I'm doing half. But yeah, I think it was one of those things that I was going to do once and like tick it and be like, oh, okay, I've learned a few tools. I'll just use them in my work setting. But after the original like graduation concert like gig, I just had a really good time, and I thought, oh, this could be a nice hobby. Like, this could be really fun, because it felt quite cathartic. Like, it felt really nice to talk about what I wanted to talk about, a bit of therapy almost. And yeah, I just kept going.
And so you're balancing 2 jobs at the moment. Would you say that comedy is your side hustle that you want to bring up to a full-time? Is that what you're doing at the moment?
Yeah, it's definitely it was a side hustle, and now I'm sort of starting to see like a little bit of momentum with my writing and that sort of thing. But yeah, definitely, if I could do full-time comedy, that's the dream, isn't it? Maybe not in these in this climate, but eventually. Yeah.
Or you double down on the pandemic and you just
yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, you do such an amazing job of like keeping yourself involved and keeping yourself like doing stuff. Like, that's just admirable. I look at you and think, man, I could never like think of these ideas and like just get shit done. But you like such a get shit done kind of girl.
Yeah, I've been told that I'm hustling. I'm just hustling.
Oh yeah, you are such a hustler, and it's so good to see someone like you being like, you show what's possible, and you're like, okay, no, there is stuff out there. Yeah,
cut the jungle up for everyone. But like, even during the first lockdowns that we had in March, April, you were testing out my show on Instagram. Do you remember that?
Yeah, we did our Insta Live. Yeah.
So that's been the reincarnation of that show. So thank you for being
well done. Yeah. It is just a lot of comedy. It's just about staying in touch, really, isn't it? And like chipping away.
Yeah.
Like, even if you have like the most talent and whatever thing, like if you don't just keep doing it, nobody's going to know if you leave. That's the thing. Like, if you left comedy, nobody would say anything. I find like nobody will say like, oh, where did you go?
That is true. That's a really good point. No one misses you.
No one,
No one. Oh, wow. All right. Yeah. Well, this is our last question, which is nice to segue into from no one will ever remember you if you just leave. What is your next journey when you do leave? What's
Next journey, comedy journey? Are we talking?
Yeah. Well, you know, what are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to. I'm hoping that the festivals happen next year because I'd love to do that. But if not, I'd love to write like a web series like you have, or get involved, like do more of that writing sort of thing. Because I think with comedy, to make a living off it, you got to have a few hats, right? So, yeah, I want to get into that writing and do the comedy, but I think the next year or so will be a very different comedy scene to what we have experienced in the past. Yeah.
Well, you know, an email came out from Melbourne Comedy Festival for a survey.
Yeah.
And look, it looks likely it's going to be called the Australian Comedy Festival because it's just be Australian acts, and it'll be interesting to see how that all works. And
which would be cool because like you'll get more opportunities and that sort of thing. Yeah, but it won't. Yeah, the international angle of it. But you never know. Like, why can't they? Those maybe we'll get some really big names. Maybe we will get like people with private jets coming out.
And
we'll get you Kevin Hart's.
They can only get one. They get a full load of international. They just pick up everyone and drop them off in Melbourne.
Get them here. We don't want any like second-rate people. We want like top shelf. Trevor Noah's, like bring them out. And
can I ask, where would you like your jet to land? Is Australia where you want to be, or it's overseas, or?
Yeah, look, I've moved around a lot, but Sydney is the first place that I've lived in that I haven't got sick of. Like it's such a city where there's something different everywhere. Like you could be a beach bum, you could go to the northern beaches and live like a coasty life, or you could live in a city and it's sort of a bit more like Melbourne, you know, lots of restaurants and comedy and that sort of thing. Like I just haven't got sick of it yet, which really surprises me. I've been here 5 years now, so I still really love it here.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like my forever place, but yeah, for now I still want to hang in Sydney.
We've got some lovely people saying, great talk, Dr. Dave from Houston, Texas.
Wow.
And Given, thanks for watching, said, would love to see you girls' shows when you come to the States. I'm sure it'll be happen when all this virus crap clears up. Yes, let's get it cleared up. That would be great. Lizzy, thank you so much for joining us on the show, the Snort Cast.
Oh, I'm so happy to have joined you. You do such a great job. I love it. I love this.
Thank you. And hopefully, like, you know, when this virus does clear up, that we can get people back into the rooms and laugh with them. And make really stinky jokes, and then, you know,
yeah. Hopefully not stink up the room.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us on this episode with Lizzy. Please follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and SnortCast. And you can follow Lizzy on her links that are on the bio. I've just added her on LinkedIn, so you can find her there too. And we will all see you next week. And before we tune out, I've got a video that I created last night when I couldn't sleep, because this is the SnortCast. Thanks for joining. Thanks, Lizzy.
Yeah, baby.